What's up and welcome back to the Metalhead Car Show. One thing you see on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and the internet in general is reality versus expectation. And it's very rare that the expectation is actually better than the reality. But sometimes, and in cars, this is exactly what happens. So today I wanted to look at 5 cars that I feel like were better in the production setting than they were in the concept setting. So let's get right into it. Going back to 2001 with the Nissan GT-R. At this point, Nissan has just killed off the RB series Skyline, with the Skyline GT350 in Japan being what we know here in North America as the Infiniti G35. So this being out, Nissan was starting work on a brand new GT-R, being the real Skyline replacement. And when they did that, they came out with this. Now, this was the original 2001 Nissan GT-R concept car, and frankly, it kind of looks like a G35 with a new front end. The front end of this thing is really boxy, the headlights aren't quite as aggressive as what we got, the grills are kind of oddly shaped, there's no wing, and it just doesn't have the drama that the Nissan GT-R got. Now comparing this to this, you can see what I fully mean. The GT-R looks so much better, it looks like it has so much more personality, and it looks way more aggressive. Now, it's hard to say with horsepower numbers, but I know in 2005, Nissan showed up to, I think, the Goodwood Festival of Speed with a Nissan GT-R concept car still under car camo and whatnot. And they were saying that at that point, it was making 450 horsepower and it was going to be a 911 turbo threat. And knowing the car came out at around 480 horsepower, it's safe to assume that 2001 concept car was probably making closer to 400 horsepower. That's why I deem the production car better than the concept. Next up, the S197 Mustang. This one might be a bit of a harder sell, but hear me out. So the prototype for the S197 Mustang came out in 2003. Ford showed off a coupe with a full glass roof and a convertible. Both of them were 2-seaters, both of them were styled off like the 1967 Mustang, and they both look great. But at that point in time, Ford owned brands like Lincoln and Jaguar, and the Mustang was sharing the same chassis with some of those cars. And with that, the prototype for this actually got a base model engine of a 3-liter V6 making about 220 horsepower, but was going to be a GT engine, which is going to be a 4-liter V8 making about 280 horsepower, and likely a Cobra or a GT500 engine that was going to be a supercharged 4-liter making about 400 horsepower, maybe 390. As what we actually got in 2005 was a base model 6-cylinder making 240 horsepower, the GT using the 3-valve 4.6 engine making a bit over 300 horsepower, and later down the road the GT500 using the supercharged 5.4-liter V8 making 500 horsepower. Adding to that, I don't know if I could fully say that what we got looks nicer. I think those cars actually look great, but the prototypes look awesome. But we still got a car that had a more durable engine making more power and 4 seats. Meaning the cars were going to be faster, more reliable, and actually more usable. And again, as much as I don't know if I can truly say the GT looks better than the prototype, I do think the GT500 looks better than the prototype. And for all those reasons, that's why I think for the S197 Mustang, it looks better than the prototype. Next up, going back to 2006. Dodge has started to bring back some of their muscle car heritage, and they were using the Dodge Challenger name. And it looked like a Dodge Challenger. This thing looked great. It had a functioning ram air hood with flaps on the hood that would actually open up when you hit the throttle. It had that 6.1-liter Hemi V8 making 425 horsepower. It had these gigantic wheels and it had the Dodge grille. But honestly, when this thing actually came out, it was better in every single way. It still very much used that 6.1-liter Hemi V8, but the engine bay actually looked like a, real car. It didn't have that ram air hood, but let's face it, that's one more moving part and is one more thing that break. And I have seen aftermarket Dodges use this, and everyone said once you do that, it actually makes the throttle super delayed and just it doesn't work properly. But they removed that Dodge grille, and I think opening up that front end looked amazing. The headlights look way more production ready than what we got in the prototype, and adding a rear wing and some smaller wheels to the car makes it look so much less goofy and like a real car. It still had the silly carbon fiber stripes on the hood, but you can't win them all. But for all those reasons, I do believe that the Dodge Challenger looked better in its production stages than it did in its prototype stages. Next up, and here's the curveball of the video, we're going to go back to the early 2000s, perhaps even the late 90s, whatever this year is. And we're going to look at the SUV Pontiac was unveiling to the public, and that is the Pontiac Aztek. Yes, how can an Aztek look any worse, right? Truthfully, I don't hate the Aztek. I think it's a goofy thing that, frankly, we're slowly going back to. For a lot of concept cars, weird's in right now, and the Aztek's not that weird in comparison to some of the things I've seen in the past little while. That's not the point of the video. The point of the video is the prototype. So if you look at the prototype, the height of its grille and like the location of its headlights don't make sense. A lot of its body lines don't make sense, especially the rear end of the car. And it's somehow worse looking than the production car. Now, a production car doesn't look great, don't get me wrong, but at least the body lines actually line up on it. And despite it has those weird headlights, they are in the right spot in a design point of view. And yeah, those 3-spoke wheels were pretty ugly, but they're better than what the prototype got. That's what I'm saying. The absolutely awful looking Pontiac Aztek's production car looks better than the prototype. And last one on the list, the Bugatti Chiron. The Bugatti Chiron is an absolute marvel of both engineering and beauty. These things are stunning, and it's absolutely staggering to see what they're actually capable of. But if you were to go back to the late 1990s, that wasn't the case. There's a very long-winded plan of Volkswagen bringing back Bugatti and working with W engines, which I'm pretty sure I've talked about in this video. In the late 1990s, Bugatti used the Chiron name, and unlike the Chiron we got now that has that fantastic 8-liter quad-turbo W16, this thing used a 6.5-liter twin-turbo W18 in that one. And you're going to think, okay, more cylinders, but a little bit less engine, less turbo, it's going to be able to make less power, right? Yeah, you are correct. It made a bit over 600 horsepower, which, considering on how big the engine is and how many cylinders it has, and the fact that it has turbos on it, that's not much power. That's not much higher than an SE30 Yoda or even a EB110 SS. Unlike the Chiron that has this kind of gorgeous front end with these curves going on and the grille sticking out just enough, the old car was kind of flat. Now obviously you have that curve to it, but let's be real that nothing sticks out, there's no real shape going on, it's curved but it's flat. Even the rear end, I think the Chiron's rear end of just kind of the cutaway and there just being more or less just grille in the rear end, I think that looks great. But the 90s Chiron, it has that kind of extended rear end going on and just these kind of odd curves. I know it complimented the new one for having a lot of these nice curves in the front end, but it just didn't work in the rear end for this car. And I like how they have the exposed engine in the old Chiron, but somehow just due to where its intake manifolds, it just looks weird. It's cool to see where everything came from. It's cool to see how we became better, but it is wild to see where we were not that long ago. But for those reasons, I deem the Bugatti Chiron production car looks way, way nicer and is way better than the prototype we would have got almost 30 years ago. But no, what do you think? What production cars came out so much nicer than the concept cars? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, subscribe if you enjoyed what you've seen. I post on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, and I'll see you later. Just want to take a minute to remind you that the Metalhead Car Show will be having its first monthly live stream on the channel on January 26th. Hope you can make it. Hope you can come hang out. We'll have a lot of fun, and I'll see you there.